Hello guys and welcome back to the Countdown to Christmas and Planet 40k. So we've got another video today on the 21st of December. We're doing another unit comparison. This time we're looking at some of the smaller units from both the codexes. So we're going to be talking about the Necron Scarab Swarms, and we're also going to be talking about the Tyranid Ripper Swarms. Very similar unit, very flat on their bases, very easy to hide. Not so known for the damage output, but more for their sneaky side with screening and scoring. But we're going to get onto what is the better unit. I'm going to do a little comparison today. So the Necron Canoptek Scarab Swarms, they are 40 points for 3. You can only take them in 3s or 6s, and it's 40 points for the 3. Now the Rippers, you can take them individually, but they're 20 points a model. Now for this video, I'm going to stick to 3 versus 3. I know I could have probably just taken 2, and it would have been an equal balanced, matchup, 40 versus 40 in terms of points. It didn't feel right. I wanted to kind of go 3 versus 3 on this one. Gone against the grain with all the other videos. So for this one, we're going to do 3 of them for 60 points. And we're just going to see how they get on. So let's get into the statistics to begin and compare. Scarab Swarms, movement of 10 inches versus the Rippers' movement of only 6 inches. So the Scarabs are much faster. The toughness is identical with toughness 2. Both have a 6+ armor save, both have 4 wounds, both have leadership 8+, and no OC. So pretty much everything there is identical apart from the movement. So you got to give a point to the Scarabs. However, I normally don't bring this part in, but I've got to because it's part of the movement. The Ripper Swarms have the core ability of Deep Strike, which I think is a very key ability to this entire video, in fact. So you got to bear that in mind. They've not got the natural speed, but they've got the deep strike speed. Remember, these things are only on 40 mil bases, and you can take them individually. So even though I've given a point to the Canoptek Scarabs, just bear that in mind. So ability-wise, I'm going to ignore the self-destruction for just a moment because the other two are very similar. So let's go through those two first. The Chittering Swarm from the Canoptek Scarabs. While your enemy unit is within engagement range of this unit, you subtract 1 from their OC. And they're also going to gain OC if they're within 6 inches of a Cryptek model. So you can get your Canoptek Scarabs to OC 1. Now the Ripper Swarms have something very similar. Sounds very similar in fact. Chitinous Horrors. Now it is an aura, but I'm not sure why it's an aura, because while a unit is within engagement range of this unit, half the OC of the models in the unit. I don't think it needed an aura. As long as they're within engagement range, it should work just fine. But I believe that the Tyranid ability here is slightly better. Of course, you've got to remove the OC part with the Crypteks because that's not what I'm comparing right now. I mean, I suppose you should in a way, but I'm just talking purely about the ability to remove OC from enemy units. The Tyranid models are halving OC. So if you're going up against a Nightbringer, for example, and they've got OC 4, they now only have OC 2. Whereas the Canoptek Scarabs, they're only removing 1. So if they were going up against the Nightbringer for whatever reason, it'll bring it only down to 3. They're not as good. So I would slightly score towards the Tyranids on that one, although we do have the option to get OC1 with Crypteks. Now we've not forgotten about the self-destruction ability. I think this is a point in itself. At the start of your fight phase, if this unit is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy models, you can select 1 model in this unit to be destroyed. If you do so, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range, roll a d6, adding 1 to the result if it's a vehicle. On a 2, 3, 4 or 5, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and on a 6 they suffer 3 mortal wounds. Now that used to be D3 plus 3 mortal wounds before the codex was released, so it has been nerfed, but it's still pretty good because maybe you've got a Scarab on only 1 or 2 wounds remaining. What you've also got to remember is your reanimation protocols could potentially be just around the corner if it's the opponent's turn. So you're likely going to be bringing one back, and if you've got Canoptek Spiders as well nearby, you can be bringing them back that way as well. Now, I don't really want to go too much into the synergy part at this moment, so let's leave the spiders out of it. But reanimation protocols in itself will kind of bring that model back, and maybe you're just going to self-destruct a damaged Scarab anyway. So I do like that ability, so that's kind of a point back to the Scarabs there. Now, in terms of the range and melee attacks, the Scarabs only have melee attacks. Feeder Mandibles, they have got lethal hits, which is all you're really looking for with this weapon, to be honest with you. 6 attacks per base, weapon skill 5+, strength 2, 0 AP, and 1 damage. So of course, when you've got 3 of them in the unit, that will be 18 attacks. We'll go on to a couple of bits of example maths for you in a moment, but let's go over the Ripper Swarms next. They've got a ranged weapon as well as the melee weapon. So the ranged weapon is a Spore Mines with pistol, so they can be fired into engagement range as well. They're only 6 inch, 4 attacks per base, hitting on 5, strength 3, no AP, 1 damage. So they're almost like extra attacks when you're in engagement range on your turn. The melee side is the Echidna's Claws and Teeth with sustained hits 1. 6 attacks per model, hitting on 5, strength 2, no AP, 1 damage. So pretty much identical to the Canoptek Scarabs, except instead of lethal, you've got sustained hits 1. Now what I've done here is I've showed a little image of what they can do in terms of damage, and I've added the ranged weapon and the melee weapon together with the Rippers, just so you know. And I've also rounded up and down because, to be honest with you, damage isn't really their thing. I don't need to go too deep into this. So if we're going up against some Gaunts, they're both killing 3 models in a unit. Not a lot there really. Against Marines, you're taking off a wound with the Scarabs and you're killing a Marine with the Rippers. Against Terminators, you're taking a wound off with the Scarabs and it's less with the Rippers. I think that's more to do with the lethal hits coming in. And toughness 6 or more, they're both doing about a wound. So there's not a lot in it really. So I'm just going to call that one a tie. There's not much in it at all. Now what we need to remember here that there was 40 points for the Necrons in terms of the unit and 60 points for the Tyranids. So in theory we could add another Scarab to get their damage output, but to be honest it's so minimal, it's not their game. Scarabs and Rippers alike are simply screening units. They're there to screen off your deployment area from maybe deep strike, strategic reserves, or just simply quick units getting in. They're also there to screen off your better units. So if you're looking to protect a Doomsday Ark or you're trying to protect a Tyranids as an example, you would use these smaller units, smaller bugs to get in the way to prevent your big stuff from actually getting charged. Now they do also have another utility, both of these units, which is just to score points. Now they're not going to be able to score any primaries because their OC is 0 unless you've got a Cryptek with the Canoptek Scarabs. But they can be doing those secondaries that relate to actions such as Cleanse as an example. Or they could be getting into the right locations and be doing some things like area denial or engaging all fronts perhaps. Now I love using both of these units when I'm playing either of these factions. And there are some cool ways of actually using them, not just the ones we've spoken about so far. Like with the Tyranids, for example, you could make more Rippers with the Parasite of Mortrex to be spawning out more of them with their ability. Necrons, you're not going to be spawning more Canoptek Scarabs, but the Canoptek Spiders can reanimate them. Crypteks also give 1 OC, as we mentioned earlier, and you can also get them to 2 OC with a Catacomb Command Barge. That's nearby as well. I mean, that obviously gets a little bit pricey, and you wouldn't use that as a play, but if they're near enough, you can do it. Rippers, you can bring them as single models. A single model is 20 points, a 40 mil base with deep strike. You can pop them into enemy territory. They're really flat, so behind terrain, out of sight. And that could be doing you investigate signal behind enemy lines, deploy teleport homers, engage on all fronts, and so on. So that is an advantage for the Rippers because you can take them in a single model unit, whereas the Scarabs you must take them in as a minimum of 3. I think the biggest point here is that the Rippers have the deep strike ability. Now the Scarabs can do things, for example using a detachment such as the Hypercrypt Legion. They can be hyperphasing in from strategic reserves off the edge of the board. So you've got the option there. But really Rippers can be doing deep strike in any of the detachment. They don't need a certain detachment to do that ability. In fact, speaking of detachments, the Assimilation Swarm is another one where they are an actual gem in that detachment because they've got the Harvester keyword, so they can be actually healing units nearby and also making use of all the stratagems and bonuses and detachment rules from that detachment itself. I think there's one in there, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. If you lose a Harvester unit, then all of a sudden for the rest of the game, whatever killed that Harvester unit, you get a +1 to wound against them, I believe. I think that one's called, I've got it here now, Broodguard Impulse for 1 CP. So you throw your one single Ripper at the Necron Nightbringer, and all of a sudden, army-wide for the rest of the game, it's a +1 to wound the Nightbringer. That's good. I mean, there's lots of other ones in the Assimilation Swarm, in fact. You've got Feel No Pain saves, you've got sticky objectives, you've got critical hits on a 5+ with lethal hits, and that will stack with sustain hits as well. So there's a lot more to it with that detachment. But as mentioned already, you can use Rippers on pretty much any detachment and they're going to do you some work and for very cheap. So we've got to do a little bit of a verdict here. What do I prefer? The Canoptek Scarab Swarms or the Tyranid Rippers? I think I've got to go with the Tyranid Rippers on this one. The deep strike ability I think is the key change here, the key difference between the two units. Yes, the Scarabs are quick, they've got that 10-inch movement, but there's so much more with the Rippers, I believe, and I'm going to go with the Rippers. It's not a massive difference in class. I think they're not much different. If I had a gun to my head, I would pick the Rippers. So guys, that has been the 21st of December. I will see you tomorrow on the 22nd. And yeah, I'll see you then.